Easter is usually treated like a single day, but that is one of the quickest ways to miss what is happening around it. This year especially, Sunday only makes sense if you look at the whole run-up. April opened with the full pink moon. Holy Week tightened the calendar. Friday carried both Good Friday and one of the strongest pre-dawn sky moments of the month. Saturday held the kind of stillness people often underestimate. And now Easter has arrived with all of that standing behind it. That changes the feel of the day. It means the weekend is not just festive, it is crowded. Crowded with meaning, crowded with memory, crowded with people returning to places they have mixed feelings about. Crowded with subjects that become harder to keep in the background. Some holidays decorate life. This one has a way of exposing it. Easter Sunday in 2026 falls on April 5th. That is the date on the calendar. Around it, the sequence is unusually tight. April first lands inside Holy Week and also carries the Paschal full moon relationship that determines Easter's timing. April 2nd is Holy Thursday. April 3rd is Good Friday. April 4th is Holy Saturday. Then April 5th arrives, and with it comes the day that changes the meaning of everything that came before it. When days line up that cleanly, they stop feeling random. They begin to feel arranged, even if nobody around you says it that way. That is worth paying attention to, because sometimes the pressure of a season does not come from one dramatic event. Sometimes it comes from how closely several real events sit beside one another until the whole week starts to feel more crowded than usual. That is the first thing to understand about this Easter. It is not floating by itself. It is sitting at the end of a sequence. The moon is part of that sequence because Easter is tied to the Paschal full moon. And in 2026, that full pink moon peaks on April 1st at 10:12 p.m. Eastern Time. That matters because it means Easter did not simply land somewhere in April by chance. It landed after a very specific relationship between the equinox, the full moon, and the following Sunday. Even if someone never looks up, even if someone never studies calendars, that structure is still there. It is built into the week whether they notice it or not. And then there is the second layer. NASA's April 2026 skywatching guide points to April 3rd as Mercury's greatest elongation, one of the best opportunities of the year to spot that planet before sunrise. So within this same compressed stretch, the liturgical calendar is moving through Good Friday. The moon has just set the Easter frame, and the morning sky is offering one of April's clearest observational moments. None of that has to be exaggerated. It is already enough. The point is not to turn the sky into theater. The point is to notice that this weekend is dense with real markers. It has religious timing, lunar timing, and visible sky timing all leaning into the same frame. The easiest way to understand the pressure of this weekend is to realize that 3 clocks are running at the same time. The first is the church clock. That one moves through Holy Week with a seriousness that does not ask whether you feel ready. It keeps going. Wednesday of Holy Week, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday. It is a clock built from memory, ritual, and repetition. And every year it returns with the same demand. Pay attention to sequence. Do not skip to the bright part too quickly. Do not flatten the week into a decoration. Let each day mean what it means before you rush to the next one. The second is the sky clock. That one does not move according to choir schedules, family lunches, or public holiday plans. It moves according to its own order. The full pink moon appears when it appears. Mercury becomes easiest to catch in the dawn sky when it becomes easiest to catch. The equinox has already passed. The Paschal Moon has already done its work. The morning horizon does not care whether someone is too busy to look at it. It still changes. It still marks time. It still makes its own statement, quietly and in full view. The third is the household clock, and that one may be the most immediate of all. It is the clock of people driving in, texting late, setting tables, buying flowers, planning church clothes, deciding whether to attend, deciding whether to stay away, deciding whether to call, deciding whether to sit through one more meal and keep the peace, deciding whether this year will repeat the last one or interrupt it. This is the part many people underestimate. Public holidays do not only create celebration, they create encounters. They place people back inside rooms they have been able to avoid. They bring old patterns into visible spaces. They shorten the distance between private tension and public behavior. That is why weekends like this often carry more weight than people admit. They do not only symbolize something, they force contact with something. So, when these three clocks line up, the result is different from an ordinary Sunday. The church clock is saying, look carefully at the order of the days. The sky clock is saying, this timing is measurable, not imagined. The household clock is saying, you cannot keep everything theoretical forever because people are arriving, rooms are filling, and choices are becoming visible. Once you see the weekend that way, the line in your title starts to make sense. Multiple Easter events are unfolding around you. Yes, around you in the wider sense, but also around you in the most practical sense possible. In the calendar, in the sky, in the room, in the schedule, in the things people postpone until a holiday forces them back into one another's presence. April first carries more weight than it first appears to. In 2026, it stands inside Holy Week as Wednesday of Holy Week, and the full pink moon peaks that same night. That means the week is already under a very precise kind of timing before Easter Sunday even gets close. The Paschal full moon is not a side detail. It is part of why Easter lands where it lands. The date of Easter is not selected casually. It follows a rule. That matters because rules create shape, and shape creates pressure. Once the moon locks the relationship into place, the rest of the weekend does not feel loose anymore. It feels set. Then April 2nd arrives as Holy Thursday. That day is rarely loud in the way people talk about it, but it carries a kind of threshold feeling that many households know even if they never put words to it. Meals become important. Tables become important. Presence becomes important. Who comes matters. Who does not come also matters. There is something about a table that reveals more than a hallway, more than a quick message, more than a passing call. A table holds people in place long enough for truth to show up in gestures, silences, side glances, old jokes, unfinished stories, and the kind of politeness that only exists because everyone in the room knows more than they are saying. Then April 3rd arrives, and this is where the weekend gets sharper. Good Friday already carries its own gravity. At the same time, NASA notes that April 3rd is Mercury's greatest elongation, making it one of the best mornings of the year to spot it low in the eastern sky before sunrise. That does not have to be turned into a sermon. It is already vivid enough on its own. One of the heaviest days in the Christian calendar sharing space with one of the clearest early morning viewing opportunities for Mercury in all of 2026. A day of grief and stillness in one frame and an unusually watchable dawn sky in another. That contrast is real. It gives the weekend texture. April 4th then becomes the waiting day. Holy Saturday is strange because it leaves no room for cheap momentum. By that point, the sequence has already passed through remembrance, table, loss, and silence. There is nothing flashy left to hide behind. The holiday has not reached its Sunday declaration yet, but it is no longer approaching from a distance either. It is right there, close enough to touch. Close enough that whatever has been avoided during the week starts to feel more deliberate. That is one reason this day can feel so exposed. It does not offer much cover. It asks whether you understand that waiting is not empty. It has weight of its own. And then Easter Sunday arrives on April 5th. This is the day people recognize most easily, but it only says what it says because of the days standing behind it. Without the week that came first, Sunday becomes sentiment. With the week intact, Sunday becomes a verdict on the whole sequence. Something has changed. Something has been carried through. Something did not stay where it was placed. And whether someone receives that spiritually, culturally, emotionally, or just quietly in the background of family life, the force of the day is still there. Now bring that out of the calendar and into ordinary life, because that is where this weekend becomes difficult to ignore. A holiday like this does not create truth out of thin air. It reveals what was already close to the surface. It reveals which room still feels tense before anyone says a word. It reveals which conversation can survive daylight and which one only survives delay. It reveals whether certain people still know how to be with each other when there is nowhere to hide except politeness. It reveals whether tradition still feels alive or whether people are mostly carrying it from habit and hoping the form is enough to hold the meaning in place. That is why I would not treat this Easter like a mood. I would treat it like an exposure window, not in the dramatic sense, in the ordinary, practical sense. A crowded weekend reveals the true size of whatever has been sitting unfinished in your life. If a subject keeps coming back during a crowded weekend, it is probably not small. If a decision becomes harder to dodge during a crowded weekend, it is probably already overdue. If someone's absence fills more space than their presence used to, that tells you something too. You do not need theatrical signs for that. You just need honesty about what keeps repeating while everything else is moving. And repetition is the real giveaway. Watch what returns during this weekend without being invited. Watch what subject keeps finding a door back into the room. Watch what old pattern tries to dress itself up as tradition. Watch what tension shows up at the table, then in the car, then in the kitchen, then again when the room goes quiet. Watch what you keep trying to laugh off, postpone, or drown in logistics. Crowded weekends are useful because they reduce your ability to pretend that unrelated things are unrelated. The same unresolved issue starts appearing through different people, different settings, and different parts of the day until even the person living inside it has to admit there is a pattern. That is also why this weekend can feel strangely decisive even when nobody makes a formal announcement. Change does not always begin with a declaration. Sometimes it begins when the same fact becomes visible in too many places to deny. Easter weekends can do that. A return visit can do that. A church service can do that. A sunrise can do that. A family meal can do that. A silence after everyone leaves can do that. You start seeing the same truth in multiple frames, and once that happens, continuing as though nothing has shifted becomes harder work than facing the shift itself. There is another reason this particular Easter stands out. It sits close to Passover in 2026, with Passover beginning at sundown on April 1st, while Easter arrives on April 5th. That places major religious observances within the same compressed early April window. Again, that does not need exaggeration. It is simply a real feature of the calendar this year. Early April is carrying more than one tradition at once, more than one remembrance at once, more than one inherited story about deliverance, passage, waiting, and change at once. Even for people who are not actively participating in all of it, that concentration matters. It adds to the sense that the week is fuller than an ordinary week has any right to be. So if you have felt that this Easter weekend is somehow more crowded than the word holiday can explain, there is a reason for that. The structure is crowded. The sequence is crowded. The symbolism is crowded. The visible sky is crowded with meaning, whether someone uses that word or not. The family schedule is crowded. The emotional bandwidth is crowded. And once a weekend gets this compressed, it starts sorting things. It sorts what still matters from what is only maintained. It sorts what survives contact from what only survives distance. It sorts what people can carry honestly from what they can only carry by pretending. The season has asked nothing new from them. Here is the part I would take seriously. You do not need to force a grand interpretation onto any of this. You do not need to invent mystery where real timing already exists. The calendar itself has done enough. Easter Sunday on April 5th, 2026, follows directly after a Paschal full moon on April 1st. Holy Thursday on April 2nd, Good Friday on April 3rd, Holy Saturday on April 4th, and one of the year's strongest Mercury viewing mornings on that same April 3rd horizon. That is already a dense frame. That is already a week with visible structure. So do not miss the plain meaning by chasing a complicated one. The plain meaning is strong enough. This Easter is unfolding across several layers at once. It is unfolding in the liturgical order of the week. It is unfolding in the moon that helps place the date. It is unfolding in the dawn sky. It is unfolding in homes, meals, calls, absences, arrivals, obligations, and the things people suddenly cannot keep postponing just because life has been busy. By the time Easter evening reaches your door, the important question will not be whether something was unfolding around you. That part is already settled. It was unfolding in the calendar before you said a word. It was unfolding in the sky before sunrise. It was unfolding at tables, in plans, and in the way this weekend tightened around whatever your life has been trying to push into the background. The real question is tougher than that. After a weekend like this, are you still going to act as if nothing called for your attention? Are you still going to walk back into the same pattern and say the timing was unclear? Are you still going to pretend this was only another holiday on the schedule? You can do that if you want. People do it every year. They let the weekend pass, they eat, they travel, they post a picture, they clean up, and by Monday, they have already reduced the whole thing into something manageable enough to ignore. But this year has not exactly given you that kind of weekend. It has given you a crowded one, a structured one, a visible one. And once something becomes that visible, ignoring it stops looking innocent. It starts looking like a decision.